Hey, it's Keith from Outlaw Speed Shop, and yes, this is another Bone Shaker build. However, I'm going to do this one just a little bit different, and I wanted to kind of show you some parts I found that work out really well. So, I was hunting around on Amazon, which has become kind of a pastime for me lately, and I stumbled across this kit of beads that are skulls, and they're perfect because they actually have holes in them for, you know, whatever you're going to use for a necklace or bracelet or whatever material, and it works out really well. There's two of everything in there, and for cheap money, you can actually convert quite a few bone shakers if you use this method. So after taking it apart and determining what I was keeping and what I wasn't keeping, obviously the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the wheels. That's not anything I had to even think twice about. I don't like the wheels that come with them, and I've got a plethora of wheels to choose from. So once I do that, I also clip the bottom parts of the wheel stops to make them nice and smooth, because I want this thing a little bit lower than what it was straight from the factory. It's not that they're not high, but you can definitely get them lower. So, and I wasn't going completely slammed, but I wanted it just a tad bit lower. So I think it's going to be about maybe an eighth total. So the big selection for me to really hunt down wheels that I think are going to work good for what I have in mind and are sized appropriately for what I'm trying to do. So I found a good set of white wheels that have the Real Rider tires on it. Bigs in the back, smalls in the front. It'll give it the right natural stance, but I obviously need to make axle tubes because these didn't, for some reason, I think I was going to use them on another build, so I cut the axles. And I don't believe they would have been the right width anyways. So I just use brass tubing. I've done this in probably 90% of my videos. You pretty much cut it to the length that you want, or to the width that you want. And then I just file it down, make sure everything's nice and smooth. I open up the holes. When you use axle tubes, obviously it's going to sit differently because it's a bigger, it's twice, three times the diameter of the actual axle. So the spot that the original axle fits in, this won't fit. So I kind of like that in this case, because see there, you can see the height difference of where the axle would normally sit compared to where this one's sitting. So that's actually dropping the entire chassis down an extra eighth of an inch. So, the only way to avoid that would be to groove out the original axle channel to the width of these brass axle tubes. But because I want this lower, this works out perfectly. I'm happy with that, but you can do it however you choose. So naturally, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the bottom. I put the axle tube in with my holes up top, which is where my axle will slide into, and I can actually put a little bit of glue in there. I do the same thing in the back, so I'm keeping the same overall stance, just an eighth lower. So it's got, with the biggers in the back and the small in the front. That's kind of how it works out. But when you do that, naturally your interior piece will need to be adjusted because it's wider and higher than what the original axle is. So you can use a file. I use a Dremel tool because I like easy, and this is pretty easy. So you just do that till it sits nice and flush, and do the same in the front, which in this case is pretty easy because I'm going to end up cutting the skull off because I'm not using it. And you can kind of see my blue mark, and that's where the actual tube was actually sitting. And another thing, you guys are going to have to bear with me. This video was done, I think, 2 weeks ago, and done and edited, but I couldn't do the voiceover because I had oral surgery, and it was extensive, and I'm still pretty sore. And if you hear a little bit of a lisp, then please excuse me. I'm trying to power through it. So just bear with me a little bit. It's probably going to be this way for a couple of videos until I heal. So I found a motor I want to use. So I'm going to end up just cutting the hole. I was going to keep the motor that I had in there. That was from the factory with some modifications to the exhaust, and I just didn't like it. So I found another motor out of something. I have no idea what. It's not 3D printed. It is another Hot Wheels engine out of something. It could be a 32. I'm not sure. But in order to do that, I want to cut the hood off at this point. You might as well. So I use my Dremel tool, and then I'll file the ends down smooth and make that the best that I can as far as how it's going to look. Now, I didn't want to paint this. I really liked the factory colors. I liked everything about it. So I was trying to be careful when I cut and when I file not to scratch the paint. So I get the new motor sitting in there. You can kind of see how that is. And, excuse me. Now, at this point, you know, I can kind of move it around. I can see what I want to do, how I want to do it. In order to put this skull in, I'm going to put a piece of brass tubing, the same stuff I use for the axles, through the actual skull, and I made it the width to fit in between the wheel backers. Now, you can also use this as your axle tube and extend your wheelbase. I didn't do that. I opted to just get it so that it wedges in between. And then I made it just long enough, and then I put a piece of 1/16 square tubing on the ends because I want to use that for my lights. And it worked out awesome because it fit right in between. Obviously, it's like a pewter ceramic type. I don't even know what the hell it's made out of, but the skull, I primed it up. I wiped it down with mineral spirits and wiped it down. It's pretty simple. Here I kind of found I was testing out different color combinations till I found something that matched the factory. And I'm using an Army Painter. It's like a blood red mixture. It's actually pretty cool. I can't tell you exactly how it was mixed, but I put just a tint of black in it just to darken it up a tad. Then I'm going to use the Tamiya panel liner to hit the engine real quick just to get on all the recesses to add some detail so it stands out a little bit. Nothing fancy. I didn't go crazy here. You don't have to on this. Just enough to make it pop. And then I'm going to use some black to paint in the certain areas. I'm going to probably hit the axle tubes, make sure that those aren't brass anymore and that they're painted. Normally, I would paint the whole chassis after I mounted the axle tube so everything gets painted and it's the same color. But I liked the charcoal gray of the base. And this is just one combination of the Bone Shaker I kind of like. I liked everything about it. So, except I just needed a car to cut up to do this one particular video because I wanted to use those skulls. So to me, this was the perfect casting to do that with because I liked so much about it, and it's really about the skull on the front, not the body. So I didn't do any body modifications per se, except cut the nose off. But overall, you can paint however you like. I'm really in love with the Army Painter Fanatic series, so that stuff I'm using constantly. I pretty much very, very rarely use Citadel, and most of the ones I haven't used in so long they dried out anyway. So I'm using the speed paints from from Army Painter, and another thing, they're like a wash, but they're a wash with a lot of pigment, and I've painted orcs and a couple other things, and now this devil skull. And I got to say, I really like how the pigment sits in it's like doing two steps in one. So it was no different than painting something red and then going back over with like a dark red wash. It just killed it down to one step. So it's really, really nice. I mean, you can dry brush like a red over it just to hit the highlights and stuff. But you would have to do that anyway. So, and then the rest is just detail painting: reds, yellows, oranges, whites for the teeth, yellows for the lights. I end up hitting the tail lights in the back, the gas tank. You know, again, what was any of it necessary? Maybe not, but again, this whole video is about the skulls and putting the new skulls on, and how just one way to mount them. Overall, this was a fun build. I'm glad I did it. I definitely came up with some ideas. I think the next one I do, I'm definitely going to leave the axle tube through the skull, but make, like I said earlier, make it my literal axle tube and run my wheels that way. And it'll extend out the wheelbase a little bit, which I think will look kind of cool. So I'll probably use like the Gladiator skull. There's one of those with like a Gladiator helmet that's half broken and the skull sticking through it. It's really cool. You'll see if you end up picking them up. But yeah, this was a cool build. I know the Bone Shakers are heavily overdone, and they're becoming heavily overdone by myself as well. So, but they're just a cool casting. There's very few castings that lend themselves to being customized. And to be honest with you, I wasn't a fan of the Bone Shaker, and I've kind of made fun of it a lot. But overall, it is a cool roadster pickup. You know, that's how I look at it. It's a 32 roadster pickup, and I kind of dig it in that regards, because there's a lot you can do to it to make it a cool custom. So, you know, out of the box and packaging, but to customize, I think they're a great choice. So these are the pieces, parts. Everything's kind of ready to go together. Everything fit perfectly, rolls nice. Everything about this was just quick and easy and fun. I had a blast doing it. It's just one of those builds that came together real quick. Again, the point of the whole video was mainly just about the skull and showing what's possible, just thinking outside the box a little bit. And other than that, it is what it is. I had a good time, and I hope you guys liked it. Let me know down below. Let me know if you're tired of seeing the Bone Shakers. Probably about as much as I am about building them, but still, it is what it is, and I will catch you on the next one.